The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, confirmed on Thursday, August 10th, that a quote-unquote miscommunication was the cause of a potentially catastrophic incident in December. It was on December 18, 2022, that a United Airlines Boeing 777-200 rapidly lost altitude after departing from Maui, coming within less than 800 feet or 240 meters from the surface of the ocean. Thankfully, the pilots recovered and there were no injuries to passengers or crew, nor damage to the aircraft. The investigation's findings were rather interesting, and so it's what we'll be covering for today's video. Let's first set the scene. Back on December 18, 2022, United Airlines flight UA1722 departed from Kahului Airport bound for San Francisco International Airport. The flight was operated by the aircraft registered November 212 Uniform Alpha, a 777-200 which was about 22.5 years old at the time. The aircraft departed at 14:49 local time as Kahului Airport was experiencing heavy rain conditions. Looking at data provided by FlightRadar24.com, the aircraft reached 2,100 feet or 640 meters approximately a minute after departing. In a statement, the NTSB said in its report that the aircraft lost altitude shortly after takeoff. United Flight 1722 lost altitude about 1 minute after departure whilst in instrument meteorological conditions, which included heavy rain. The airplane descended from 2,100 feet to about 748 feet above the water before the crew recovered from the descent. No injuries were reported and the airplane was not damaged. The NTSB eventually investigated this event and months later released its findings. According to the agency, the captain and first officer agreed on takeoff procedures with flaps set to 20 degrees and reduced thrust per performance calculations. When the plane was taxiing, Ground Air Traffic Control, or ATC, informed the pilots that low-level wind shear advisories were in effect, which prompted the captain to choose to switch to a maximum thrust departure. The captain reportedly hand-flew the aircraft while autothrottle was engaged. This contributed to a normal rotation and initial climb. As the wide-body aircraft increased altitude, its airspeed fluctuated due to turbulence and wind shear. Once reaching acceleration altitude, the captain slightly reduced the plane's pitch and called for the flap setting to be decreased to 5 degrees. However, as the NTSB reported, the first officer reportedly thought the captain announced the flaps to be set at 15 degrees and did so without contacting the departure ATC to discuss the weather conditions. Once this happened, the captain noticed that the aircraft's maximum operating speed indicator shifted to a lower value than expected, although the airspeed started to accelerate rapidly, according to the NTSB. To avoid going over speed, the captain manually reduced the engine thrust, which overrode the autothrottle engagement. The captain also noticed the flaps indicators showed 15 degrees and called again for the flaps to be set at 5 degrees, which the first officer then adjusted. As per the report, the first officer, quote, knew the captain was having difficulty with airspeed control and thus asked the captain if maybe his instruments were wrong. However, the first officer did not receive an immediate response. The report is quoted as saying the following. The first officer recalled that the captain asked for flaps 1 soon after he had called for flaps 5, and then the first officer set the flaps to 1 degree. He then noticed the airspeed had increased further and the control column moved forward. At that time, the plane's pitch altitude was decreasing, which made it gain speed. The move reportedly caused the aircraft to nosedive dramatically for around 10 seconds. According to CNN, passengers on the flight said there were several screams during the terrifying event. Both pilots told the NTSB that they heard cockpit alarms going off, the initial warnings from the Ground Proximity Warning System, or GPWS. Additionally, the first officer recalled announcing, "Pull up, pull up." The captain then pulled back on the controls to lift the aircraft, reducing power to decrease speed. Then the captain applied full power to initiate the CFIT, or Controlled Flight into Terrain, recovery. The Air Current has noted that the two people familiar with the event shared that the climb, quote, produced forces of nearly 2.7 times the force of gravity on the aircraft and its occupants, as the descent shifted to an 8,600 foot per minute climb. The entire incident lasted a mere 45 seconds, which may have felt much longer for everyone on board the aircraft. After noting a positive rate of climb, the captain lowered the nose to resume a normal profile, ensured that the flaps and speed brakes were fully retracted, and engaged the autopilot. The remainder of the flight was uneventful, the NTSB explained. As reported by the Air Current, a senior aviation safety official said that such an extreme dive would normally prompt a call to the aircraft to ensure there was no threat of hijacking or continuing issues maintaining control of the aircraft. Following the incident, the airline issued a statement saying that the pilots filed the appropriate safety report after the aircraft safely landed at San Francisco International. United then closely coordinated with the FAA and the pilots' union on an investigation that ultimately resulted in the pilots receiving additional training. In the board's final report, quote-unquote miscommunication was deemed a probable cause. Indeed, it said that this probable cause stemmed from the flight crew's failure to manage the airplane's vertical flight path, airspeed, and pitch altitude following a miscommunication about the captain's desired flap setting during the initial climb. The pilots involved had a combined 25,000 hours of total flying time at the time of the incident. 1 Mile at a Time elaborates, noting that the captain had a total of 19,600 flight hours, including 5,000 hours on the 777, while the first officer had 5,300 flight hours, including 120 hours on the 777. Addressing the incident, United has since modified one of its operations training modules and reportedly issued an awareness campaign at its training center regarding flight path management. The Star Alliance carrier also said that both pilots continue to fly today. An airline spokesperson offered the following statement: "There's nothing more important than the safety of our crew and customers, which is why we're drawing on the lessons learned from this flight to inform the training of all United pilots. Our pilots voluntarily reported this event, and United fully cooperated with the independent investigation so that insights could be used to enhance the safety of the entire industry. Both pilots received additional training and continue to fly for United today." It's interesting to note that the incident was never reported to the NTSB voluntarily by the airline. It wasn't until the incident began to receive significant media coverage a couple of months later that United finally opened an investigation. Why was this? Well, the incident did not reportedly meet the requirements of federal regulations, and so the NTSB was not immediately notified. 2 months after the incident, when the board learned of the event, an investigation ensued. What are your thoughts on this incident and the NTSB's findings? Let us know by leaving a comment. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.